I still remember that night as if it were a scene from a dream, one painted in the fading light of a long, troubled life. Tim, the dignified grandparent whose presence had always commanded respect, lay on his deathbed in a quiet, dimly lit room of an old suburban house in the USA. His hand, weak and trembling, reached out for mine. In that fleeting moment, with his eyes filled with both regret and a spark of forbidden passion, he whispered the truth, a confession of a lifelong love that had defied all the rules of our family and society. It was a secret that would shatter everything I believed about loyalty, honor, and love. My name is Nancy, and I was once the keeper of that secret, a secret that had both enchanted and tormented me for decades. Growing up in a close-knit family where everyone's life was interwoven with traditions and expectations, I never imagined that I would be drawn into a romance so dangerous that it would rewrite our family history. Tim was not just a man with silver hair and a gentle smile. He was a man with stories hidden in his wrinkles and a past that danced dangerously on the edges of what was acceptable. His wife, Gracie, had been his rock for over 50 years, a devoted partner who never suspected that behind her loving husband lay a life of undisclosed passion. And then there was Dustin, a cousin who had grown up believing in the sanctity of our family's legacy, unknowingly carrying the weight of secrets that would soon emerge. The night Tim confessed, the air in the room was thick with unspoken emotions. I could feel the pulse of every moment as his voice, barely audible, revealed the passion and pain of our secret affair, a love that had started in the shadows many years ago. In the flickering light of the bedside lamp, I saw the reflection of our past, stolen glances in crowded rooms, whispered promises in empty corridors, and tender embraces that defied the norms of our existence. Each word he spoke was a reminder of the nights we shared, moments filled with intense longing and the danger of discovery. It was a love both illicit and deeply human, a flame that had burned quietly under layers of guilt and regret. As I listened, memories flooded back. I remembered the first time our eyes met across a busy gathering, an encounter that ignited a spark neither of us could ignore. I recalled the secret rendezvous in a small hidden park, where the world seemed to stop, and all that mattered was the stolen time we had together. Yet, despite the beauty of our moments, there was an ever-present shadow, Gracie's kind eyes and Dustin's warm smile, reminders of the family we were expected to honor. How could a love so deep also be a betrayal of everything we had been taught to cherish? Now, with Tim's confession hanging in the air like a fragile promise, I felt the ground shift beneath me. His parting words hinted at truths that would not only redefine my understanding of love, but also force the entire family to face a past they never knew existed. As his eyes closed for the final time, I realized that this was just the beginning of a journey that would tear apart old bonds and forge a new, painful legacy. And so, with a heart full of sorrow and a mind racing with unanswered questions, I began to piece together the fragments of our secret, a story of passion, betrayal, and the irreversible passage of time. I still remember the day our paths first crossed. It was an unusually warm spring afternoon in a small town in the USA, and I had been invited to a family reunion by chance. I had little reason to expect that I would encounter Tim, a man whose quiet strength and mysterious smile would soon change my life forever. At first, our meeting seemed accidental, a brief exchange of polite words over a bowl of homemade lemonade. Yet beneath that ordinary interaction lay an unspoken promise of something extraordinary. As the hours passed and the reunion buzzed with laughter and chatter, I found myself continually drawn to Tim. There was a spark in his eyes that spoke of hidden depths and secret desires, a warmth that transcended the boundaries of age and circumstance. I remember watching him from across the room as he engaged in gentle conversation with family members, always with a kind word for everyone. But then, in a quiet moment away from the crowd, our eyes met and I felt as though time had slowed down. It was as if the world around us faded away, leaving only the two of us in that brief, precious moment. We began to find excuses to speak to one another. A shared comment about the beauty of the garden, a gentle nod at a particularly touching memory from years past, or even the soft murmur of our voices when we stood close together on the porch. Each encounter stirred feelings that I had never known before. I was both scared and thrilled by the intensity of what I felt, a pull so strong that it defied all the rules I had grown up with. It was a forbidden attraction, one that promised both beauty and heartbreak. Our secret love blossomed in the quiet hours of the night. We arranged to meet in a small, secluded park at the edge of town. The park, with its ancient trees and soft whispers of the wind, became our haven, a place where our love could exist away from prying eyes. Under the cover of darkness, we talked for hours about dreams, regrets, and the deep, unspoken truths of our hearts. In those stolen moments, I felt alive in a way I had never imagined possible. The world of everyday life with its rules and expectations melted away, leaving behind only the raw emotion of our shared passion. But even in the midst of our secret bliss, fear lingered in the back of my mind. I knew that every moment we spent together was a dangerous risk. There was always the chance that someone might catch a glimpse of our hidden meetings, a close relative, perhaps even Dustin, whose eyes held an unspoken vigilance for family honor. One evening, as we sat quietly on a weathered bench, the distant sound of footsteps made my heart skip a beat. I could see the shadow of another approaching, and for a moment, I feared our secret would be exposed. Tim's hand squeezed mine in silent reassurance, and we both quickly dispersed into the darkness before we could be discovered. Even now, the memory of that near discovery sends shivers down my spine. It was a stark reminder that our love, no matter how beautiful, was built on fragile ground. With every secret meeting, every whispered word, we risked not only our own happiness but the very fabric of our family history. And yet, I could not help but be drawn deeper into the warmth of our forbidden connection, even as the threat of exposure loomed ever closer. That night in the park marked the beginning of a journey filled with passion, risk, and undeniable love. A journey that would soon lead us into uncharted territory, where every moment was a delicate dance between desire and the painful weight of secrets. Living our secret felt like treading through a maze of whispered deceptions and half-truths. Every day, I found myself caught between the fiery passion that Tim and I shared and the heavy burden of the lies we had built our world upon. Our affair, once thrilling and spontaneous, had gradually evolved into a careful dance of concealment, where every step was measured and every word was chosen to keep the truth hidden from a family that revered honor and tradition. From the outset, we constructed elaborate excuses for our late-night rendezvous and prolonged absences. When I was asked about my whereabouts, I spun tales of working late or meeting with friends, even though the truth was always the stolen hours with Tim. The more we lied, the more tangled our web became, each falsehood linking to another until the entire narrative threatened to collapse under its own weight. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, staring at the ceiling as the guilt crept in. My heart pounded with the knowledge that every fabricated story was a step further into a labyrinth with no clear exit. There were days when the strain of maintaining this double life was almost too much to bear. I began to question whether our love could ever be free of the shadows cast by our deceit. I would lie awake at night, haunted by dreams of discovery, a door creaking open, a whisper of suspicion, or the stark realization on a loved one's face as they uncovered the truth. The fear was constant, gnawing at my resolve. Yet, despite the internal turmoil, the memory of our secret moments, the taste of forbidden kisses, and the warmth of Tim's hand in mine pushed me to continue down this dangerous path. One particular incident still sends shivers down my spine. It was a chilly autumn evening, and I had arranged to meet Tim at a quiet, abandoned diner on the outskirts of town, a place that had become our safe haven. The plan was simple: a quick embrace, a few words exchanged in hushed tones, and then back to our respective lives before anyone could suspect a thing. However, fate had a different plan. As I approached the diner, my heart raced not from excitement but from a deep, unsettling dread. I noticed a car idling at the entrance, its headlights dimmed as if to remain unnoticed. I hesitated for a moment, my mind racing with the possibility that Dustin, the vigilant cousin who often roamed the family gatherings, might be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Inside the diner, I sat in a shadowed booth, each tick of the clock amplifying my anxiety. When Tim finally arrived, his face was drawn, and I could see a flicker of concern in his eyes. Before we could exchange our usual words of reassurance, the door swung open, and a figure stepped inside. Time seemed to slow. For a heart-stopping moment, I feared that our secret had been laid bare. The intruder's gaze swept the room, and my heart hammered against my chest. It turned out to be nothing more than a stranger lost in thought, but the close call was enough to shake us deeply. We exchanged a look, a mix of relief and silent acknowledgement of how fragile our hidden world truly was. After that night, the pressure to maintain our lies became even more overwhelming. Every meeting, every whispered conversation, was now laced with the fear of discovery. I felt the walls closing in, each false story and hidden truth a brick in the prison we had built around ourselves. And in the midst of this labyrinth of lies, I couldn't help but wonder if the day would come when the whole facade would crumble, revealing not just our hidden passion but the painful truth behind every carefully guarded secret. The hospital room was shrouded in a heavy silence, punctuated only by the soft beeping of a monitor and the steady hum of the ventilation system. I sat by Tim's bedside, holding his frail hand as the weight of years past pressed down on us both. Tim's once vibrant eyes were now clouded with the haze of failing strength, yet in them shone a deep, urgent need to set things right. It was in that solemn, fragile moment that he began to speak the truth, a truth that would forever alter the course of our lives and the legacy of our family. "Nancy," he whispered, his voice trembling yet determined, "I have carried this secret for too long. I need you to know everything." His words, though soft, carried the gravity of a lifetime spent burdened by forbidden love and unspeakable regret. As he spoke, memories of our clandestine meetings and stolen moments flooded my mind, the tender whispers in the dark, the secret glances that spoke of passion, and the quiet rebellion of our hearts against a world that demanded conformity. Tim's confession was not merely an admission of our love, but a full account of a life lived in the shadows. He recounted how, years ago, he had found solace and passion in our forbidden bond. Despite his long-standing duty to Gracie, a woman whose kindness and steadfastness had been the cornerstone of our family, Tim's heart had been irreversibly captured by a connection that defied the ordinary. "I was torn between a life I was supposed to live and a life that called to me," he murmured, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Every secret meeting, every whispered word with you, was both a moment of pure truth and a betrayal of all that I had built." As his words filled the room, I felt the layers of our carefully constructed lies begin to crumble. The picture of Tim that the family had cherished for decades was one of honor and quiet dignity. Yet behind that facade lay a tumultuous inner world, a world where passion fought against duty, and desire battled with the painful awareness of our deceit. I listened in a daze, my heart aching with both the beauty and the tragedy of our shared past. I realized that every stolen embrace and every covert conversation had left an indelible mark on my soul, a mark that now intertwined with the fate of our family. Tim's confession continued, each word steeped in sorrow and remorse. He spoke of the nights we spent hidden away from prying eyes, of the delicate balance between love and betrayal, and of a decision that had haunted him for all these years. "I wanted to live honestly with you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "but I was afraid of shattering the world we all believed in." His admission was a raw, unfiltered testament to the conflict that had defined his life, a conflict that now left him teetering on the edge of finality. Then, as if gathering the last of his dwindling strength, Tim paused and fixed his gaze on me. "Nancy, there is one more truth I have hidden, a truth that even your own mother knew," he declared, his tone suddenly urgent. My heart skipped a beat. I leaned closer, desperate to understand. "What do you mean?" I asked softly, my voice trembling with anticipation and fear. Before I could press further, Tim's eyes fluttered closed, and his breathing slowed to a labored rhythm. In that excruciating pause, the room seemed to hold its breath, suspended in the twilight between life and the unknown. His final words, left hanging in the air, promised to unravel even deeper layers of our family's carefully guarded history. As I sat there, enveloped in grief and a newfound dread, I realized that his confession had not ended our story. It had only opened the door to a revelation that would force us all to confront the very foundation of our shared past. The truth, now laid bare on his deathbed, left me trembling with unanswered questions and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. What did he mean by the secret my mother knew? And how would this revelation reshape the legacy of our family? As Tim's eyes closed for the last time, I was left alone with the echoes of his final confession, standing at the precipice of a truth too powerful to ignore. In the weeks that followed Tim's final confession, our family was left reeling from a truth that shattered decades of carefully constructed memories. The revelation of his lifelong affair, and my part in that forbidden love, sent ripples of shock, sorrow, and even a strange sense of relief through every corner of our once unshakable world. I, Nancy, found myself at the center of a maelstrom of emotions as the legacy we all believed in was suddenly up for reinterpretation. The first days were the hardest. Gracie, Tim's devoted wife, struggled to reconcile the man she had loved and honored for over 50 years with the hidden life that now lay bare. I met her one afternoon in the quiet garden behind our old family home. Her eyes, red-rimmed and pained, met mine with a mixture of grief and disbelief. "How do we live with this now?" she whispered, her voice shaking as she clutched a faded photograph of happier times. I could only offer silence and my own shared pain, knowing that our intertwined fates had reached a point of no return. Dustin, ever the vigilant guardian of our family's honor, was equally conflicted. His initial shock gave way to a storm of questions about loyalty and betrayal. At a somber family meeting in the living room, he confronted me with a tremor of anger and sorrow in his voice. "How could you let this secret tear us apart? he demanded, eyes searching mine for answers. In that moment, I realized that our choices, made in moments of overwhelming passion, had consequences that would forever change the foundation upon which our family was built. The confession forced each of us to embark on our own journey of reflection. I began to sift through old letters, photographs, and memories that suddenly carried new meanings. Every secret glance, every whispered word shared in the stillness of the night, was now a piece of a puzzle that we all had to reassemble. I recalled moments from our clandestine meetings in the park and the stolen hours in abandoned diners. The beauty of our connection was undeniable, yet so was the weight of our deception. The tapestry of our past was now irrevocably altered, its threads tangled with passion, regret, and an ever-present longing for truth. Over time, painful conversations turned into tentative steps toward forgiveness. In quiet moments, Gracie and I found ourselves speaking softly in the twilight, our voices merging in shared regret and mutual understanding. She admitted that the love she had for Tim was as complex as the man himself, and that perhaps there was more to the story than simple betrayal. Dustin, too, began to soften, realizing that the human heart was often capable of unexpected contradictions, of love and error existing side by side. Even as the family's collective heartache slowly gave way to a cautious acceptance, we were all left wondering about the secret Tim had left unsaid, the mystery that even my own mother had known. This hidden truth lingered like an unfinished chord in a bittersweet symphony, promising further revelations as time went on. As I sat by the window one rainy evening, the falling drops echoing the patter of my reflective thoughts, I came to understand that rewriting our legacy was not about erasing the past, but rather about embracing its complexity. Love, in all its forms, was messy and imperfect. The secrets we held, no matter how painful, had shaped who we were and the bonds we shared. In that acceptance, I found a measure of peace, a fragile hope that, despite the heartbreak, our family could find a way to move forward with honesty and compassion. Now, as I share this story with you, my heart remains heavy yet resolute. The truth may have disrupted our past, but it also paved the way for a future where we can honor our authentic selves. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey. If you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more heartfelt narratives and insights into the hidden layers of life.